And now for the most common and best option. With the right connections and, most importantly, a lot of money, it was possible to purchase any weapon and ammunition in any quantity. And by the time the USSR collapsed, influential organized crime groups already had money and connections. Large quantities of weapons fell into the hands of gangsters in the 1990s from hot spots. For example, groups in Odessa, and later in other regions of Ukraine, were supplied with weapons from Transnistria. Weapons came to Russia from the Caucasus regions, and after the start of the First and then the Second Chechen Wars, their number only increased. With the collapse of the USSR, a lot of weapons, ammunition, and other military property was stolen from the warehouses of military units by officers and warrant officers in large quantities. Very often, they were driven to commit such crimes by their low salaries, which, like many others, were paid to the military with long delays. Stolen weapons were simply written off as sent for disposal, while ammunition was written off as used up in training exercises. Often, looted warehouses were set on fire to conceal the theft. Proper accounting for weapons and ammunition only began closer to 2000. Next, we will take a closer look at the most common weapons. The Tula Tokarev, also known as the TT. In person. It was transported out of military warehouses in boxes. Gangsters in the 90s loved this pistol for its cheapness, availability, accuracy, and power. The TT bullet penetrates light bulletproof vests. The TT was often used by hitmen, who would discard it at the scene of the crime. Gangsters of the 90s also frequently used Chinese TT pistols, the quality of which could vary greatly. And now for a bit of history. In this photo, junior political instructor Alexei Gordievich Eremenko, clutching a TT pistol in his hand, leads his soldiers into battle. This photo is considered one of the symbols of victory, making the pistol itself legendary. At the time, no one could have imagined that just 45 years later, the TT would become a symbol of banditry. Nagant revolver. A symbol of the Revolution and Civil War, the famous Nagant revolver was often used by bandits in the turbulent 1990s. Thanks to its design, which prevented gas from escaping between the barrel and the cylinder, the Nagant was one of the few revolvers that could be used with a silencer. Homemade or factory-made, which, by the way, is called bra-mit. Igor Tokov was killed with a Nagant revolver. During a search of the Slanovskaya organized crime group, 10 Nagants were found, but to the surprise of the operatives, the gangsters presented a permit to carry weapons signed by the deputy chief of the Moscow District Police of the city of Ryazan. I think comments are unnecessary. PM. More compact, ergonomic, and reliable than the TT. The Makarov pistol was one of the most common pistols in the turbulent 1990s. It fell into the hands of criminals in the same way as the TT, from army warehouses, hot spots, or even more simply, directly from the holsters of police officers. It was used by hitmen, ordinary gangsters, crime bosses, and other skilled marksmen. APS. Stekin automatic pistol. Formidable appearance. Capable of firing in bursts. Large magazine capacity. Holster stock like the legendary Mauser pistol from the Revolutionary era. A favorite and coveted weapon for many gangsters. The APS became fashionable in criminal circles thanks to representatives of the Caucasian Mafia. Kalashnikov assault rifle. If something heavier was needed for the job, the Kalashnikov assault rifle came to the rescue, which, as we know, never lets you down. Preference was given to models with folding stocks, such as the AKMS, AKS, and Aksu. Borts. The Chechen Borts often appeared in various crimes, especially those involving Caucasian organized crime groups. Ogram 2000. The Croatian Ogram 2000 was also popular due to its compact size, low cost, and the lack of a bullet cartridge library among law enforcement agencies. It was often used by hitmen when they needed to cover one or more targets with heavy fire at short range. Scorpion. Thanks to its compactness and accuracy, the Czechoslovakian Scorpion was often used by hitmen. Journalist Vladislav Listyev was killed with a Scorpion. Odessa crime boss Viktor Kolivar was also killed with a Scorpion. Sniper rifles were the main weapon of choice for hitmen. The famous Otarik Vantrishvili was killed with a small-caliber hunting rifle. Grenades. A true Russian gentleman of fortune, when going on a job, always took at least one muka with him. And a couple of grenades, just in case. The grenades used were those that could be obtained from army warehouses and hot spots. Dug-up samples could also be used at one's own risk. Lyrics. So, we've come to the end of this short, superficial story about the weapons of the gangsters of the 90s. If we delve into this topic in more detail, we could discuss it for several hours, which is an unforgivably long time, considering the fact that, in the end, the main weapon is not in the hands, but in the head. And those representatives of the criminal world of the 90s who knew how to think correctly often achieved success without firing a single shot, were able to survive those wild times, legalize themselves, occupy high positions in society, becoming successful businessmen, politicians, or even